There's a good chance a camera has already photographed your car today. Maybe several. They sit on poles at intersections all over the country, silently reading every license plate that drives past, and storing it. Supporters say it's just a camera doing what any person could do. Critics say it's a dragnet that tracks where you go. So here's the real question. Are these cameras legal? The surprising answer, even the courts can't agree. First, what are we talking about? The best-known brand is Flock, but they're all the same idea. An automated license plate reader, an ALPR. A camera snaps a photo of every plate that passes, logs the time and place, and sends it to a searchable database. And this isn't one camera on one corner, it's a network. Thousands of cameras in thousands of towns, feeding one big searchable system. Picture a spider web stretched across a whole city. Touch any strand, and it records that you were there. Now the law that decides this is the Fourth Amendment. It protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. And notice that last part, by the government. That word is about to matter a lot. Here's a point people miss. The Fourth Amendment only restrains the government, police, agencies, the state. If your neighbor stood on the sidewalk filming cars all day, that's not a search at all. Annoying, maybe, but not a constitutional problem. So the whole fight is about one thing. When the police do it at massive scale, does it cross a line? Start with the strongest argument that these cameras are perfectly legal. It's simpler than you'd think. Your license plate is public. The government issues it, and the law requires you to display it, right out in the open. And courts have long said you have no real expectation of privacy in something you show the whole world. Think of a highway toll booth. It photographs your plate, matches it to your account, and bills you. Nobody calls that an illegal search. Supporters say a plate reader is the same thing. A camera, in public, recording something already in plain view. One snapshot of one plate on one street. By itself, almost no court would call that a search. But critics say that misses the whole point. Flock isn't one camera taking one photo. It's thousands of cameras, storing every read for weeks. A permanent searchable map of where everyone has been. And they argue that changes everything. Lawyers call it the mosaic theory. Any single tile is meaningless. One photo of your car at one corner, but stack thousands of tiles together, and a picture of your entire life appears. Where you sleep, work, worship, who you visit. One tile is public. The whole mosaic, critics say, is surveillance. And this isn't a fringe argument. It comes straight from the Supreme Court. In a case called Carpenter, the court said that tracking someone's movements over time, even in public, can become a search that needs a warrant. Its line was simple. Being seen crossing one street is different from the government logging every street you've crossed for months. Critics say a plate camera network does exactly that. It doesn't need your phone or a warrant or even to know your name. It just quietly records your car, everywhere, all the time. So the argument is, if tracking your phone's location is a search, why isn't tracking your car's location the same thing? This isn't hypothetical. It's being fought in court right now. In Norfolk, Virginia, 2 residents, backed by a group called the Institute for Justice, sued over the city's network of plate cameras, arguing it was a warrantless search of their movements. In early 2026, a federal judge ruled against them. The judge leaned toward the "it's public" side. Norfolk kept its data for about 21 days, across roughly 175 cameras, grouped into about 75 clusters. And the judge pointed to the gaps. The residents' cars were photographed hundreds of times, but only every 40 to 50 minutes, and miles apart. Not constant enough, he said, to be the kind of tracking that raises a real constitutional problem. The city won round 1, though the judge warned that as these networks grow, the balance could tip the other way. But that's not the end. The residents appealed, and the case is still climbing through the courts. And here's the twist that makes this the most interesting fight in surveillance law right now. While it was on appeal, the ground moved. Just months later, the Supreme Court decided another location case, Chatrie. And it said something that cuts against Norfolk's logic. Getting your location data is a search even for a short window, even a small slice. In other words, maybe not enough tracking isn't the right test at all. Some legal observers say the very reasoning the city won on may already be on shakier ground. So, are plate cameras legal or not? Honestly, right now, nobody can tell you for certain. That's not a dodge, it's the actual state of the law. One court said the city was fine, a higher court is reviewing it, and a fresh Supreme Court ruling just reshuffled the deck. Underneath it all is one hard question the courts are wrestling with. Do you have a reasonable expectation of privacy in your public movements? Not any single trip, but the whole pattern of your life. For a plate on one street, the answer has always been no. For a map of every street over months, that's the question nobody has finally answered. Here's a distinction that may decide the whole thing, and it's worth understanding. Is the problem the camera collecting the plate, or the police later searching the database for one person? Many legal thinkers land here. Taking the photo isn't the search. Pulling up someone's whole movement history is. If that view wins, it points to a middle ground. The cameras could keep running. But before police could trace an individual's travels through the database, they'd need a warrant, just like for a phone. Collect broadly, but require a warrant to search it. That's the compromise a lot of this may be heading toward. But that's not how it usually works today. Right now, in many places, police can search a plate database without a warrant at all. Just a case number and a reason logged in the system. That gap between what the law might require and what actually happens is a big part of what the lawsuits are about. There's another lever in this fight: how long the data is kept. Some states have passed laws limiting how long plate reads can be stored, sometimes to just days or weeks, far short of a permanent record, precisely because a permanent database is what makes long-term tracking possible. Shorter retention, less mosaic. It's one way the law is already trying to draw a line. And here's where it could get much bigger. So far we've talked about reading plates, but the same cameras can be paired with software that recognizes vehicles by make, color, dents, even, some worry, the people inside. The moment a network stops reading plates and starts identifying people, courts and lawmakers treat it as a whole new level of concern. One more layer: these networks often share data across city and state lines, so a camera in one town can feed a search run by police 2 states away. That raises a fresh problem. A state that limits plate surveillance can have its own residents tracked through another state's cameras. So, let's be fair to both sides, because both are serious. Supporters say these cameras solve real crimes: stolen cars, Amber Alerts, hit and runs, using nothing but public information any officer could observe. Critics say a permanent searchable record of everyone's movements is exactly the kind of government power the Fourth Amendment was written to check. Both of those can be true at once. So, what happens if a court eventually decides a particular search went too far? Usually, the evidence from it gets thrown out. That's the exclusionary rule. It's the pressure that will, case by case, force police departments to adjust how they use these systems. Civil liberties advocates make one more argument. The Fourth Amendment, they say, was never really about the guilty. It's about limiting what the government can do to all of us. So, whether a network can quietly log where 100 million innocent people drive is, to them, a question about the kind of country you live in. Supporters push back. Passive plate reading isn't targeting anyone, and it isn't based on a hunch about any specific person. Both sides feel the stakes. So, are flock cameras legal? As of today, the cameras themselves are widely treated as legal to operate. The hard fight is over what police can do with the data, and whether tracking your movements over time needs a warrant. One case said no. The Supreme Court just made that answer wobble. The next rulings will decide it. Here's the honest bottom line. Reading a plate in public, almost certainly fine. Building a searchable map of everywhere you've driven, genuinely contested. The law is being written right now, in real time, and which way it finally lands is still an open question. This is the kind of question that doesn't have a settled answer yet, so it's one you actually get to think about. Is a camera on every corner a smart tool that catches criminals? Or a quiet dragnet that watches everyone? Reasonable people land on both sides. The courts are deciding the law. You get to decide what you think. That's where the law on license plate cameras actually stands, settled in parts, wide open in others, and moving fast. Know your rights, and keep watching how this one unfolds. Now you know.